Good morning to everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here with you to moderate a very interesting topic, which is related to sustainability or ESG reporting, which comes as the second step of what Thomas and Aruna was mentioning, is the importance of integrating sustainability and the SDGs into the strategy. And then we need to talk about reporting now. So as you know, most organizations, it is required from them to report about their achievements, about their impact also on the social, environmental, and governance aspects or economic aspects. However, I wanted to highlight a very interesting study that was done by the PwC in 2019, which shows alarming numbers that says that 72% of the organizations that they assessed and analyzed, they mentioned the SDG in their reporting, which is very good. They mentioned that sustainability and the SDG in their reporting. However, out of these 72% of companies, only 25% of them include the SDGs in their business actions and in their business strategies. So this is alarming that we have a huge number of organizations that they just mentioned the SDGs in their reporting. However, it is not really integrated into their business strategies. And out of these 25% of organizations, only 1% report quantitative measures to talk about their impact. So from this fact that we are living in, it comes to me different questions that I would like to engage our great panelists in this conversation. So I will start with Aruna, please. As we said, like we have few numbers maybe, or not that big number of organizations that really integrate the SDGs into their business strategies and actions. So what do you think are the main challenges that organizations face in reporting and when it comes to ESG reporting? And what do you think are the best approach to handle these challenges?
Thank you, Khulud, for setting up that very interesting context about reporting. And I think as practitioners, and I'm going to take the liberty of being candid on this conversation, I think a lot of sustainability reports are intended sometimes to be just good-looking reports, a lot of photographs, a lot of visuals, but the quantitative aspect is missing sheerly because the data is difficult to access. So while people have ambitions and plans and when the strategy is clear, but when you get down to actually starting to measure what's the carbon footprint, what is scope 1, what is scope 2, what's scope 3, what is really within the control of the organization and what's not. And when you, so you get down to those elements that need to contribute to the report, is when the departments and the teams start struggling. So I would say the first challenge is being able to figure out within complex organizations where the data is sitting and being able to kind of extract it. The second thing is, I do see that in a lot of companies, not everyone has yet set a very strong sustainability department internally. A lot of them depend on external advisors. Now, there's only so much an external advisor can do within the organization. Sometimes you just need those team members who will go around, coordinate and get information. So I'd say two of the hurdles that most organizations face when they start their reporting journey is data and surely the internal bandwidth, because usually sustainability is handed over to an existing department, sometimes to marketing, sometimes to HSE, depending on the organization. So I think, in my view, those are the two challenges, and I'd like to hear from the other panelists as well on their thoughts on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna. This is a very important, I think, two aspects, which is, as you said, related to data collection and which leads to stakeholder engagement, like proper stakeholder engagement. That's why we see reporting, but how these reports are really reflecting the sustainability strategies and the sustainability business actions, So back to you, Dr. Wesam. Like building up on what Aruna was saying, do you think there is a lack of awareness in the aspects of reporting, like what should be included in the reporting and how reports should reflect the business strategies or the sustainability strategies. Do you think there is a lack of awareness, and whose responsibility is this? Like, what we need to increase awareness, to enhance the data collection process, stakeholder engagement, other aspects, please?
Yeah, thank you so much. So good morning, everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this discussion. And I think, on the issue of awareness, so it's not only lack of awareness on the reporting. I think there is a lack of awareness on sustainability, the whole concept of sustainability. And I think this is was mentioned by Ms. Aruna, about the views on sustainability. It's not only about reporting and, some graphs and some beautiful, graphics on the reports rather than on the concepts, on the practices of sustainability. So yeah, I mean, the awareness, the lack of awareness is there, and the whole concept on the reporting as well. And I think this is the responsibility of the companies. This is the responsibility. If you go back to again, as one of the academics, I'm blaming also the whole education system on that. On when talking about sustainability, talking about environmental awareness, we still need a lot of reforms in education so that we don't go and jump to business directly. We have to produce graduates who will be responsible, who will be ethical, thinking about environment, considering all the issues of pollution from day one, from even the very early stage of any project, of any production stage. But if we want to focus on business, so definitely that is should be conducted by the companies, whether it's in-house training or sending the employees for trainings. And I think maybe if we talk about the policy level, there should be some policies and regulations from the government bodies which regulate the whole process. And when you have regulation and policies that will, I don't want to use the term force, but at least will push the companies to really conduct sustainability practices in all aspects of the production stages. And if you talk about projects again, and maybe I'm always stressing on my knowledge on environmental assessment, because and this is practically, this is the first step in sustainability, is to conduct environmental assessment for any activity, for any production stage, for any project that we are going to implement. And I think this will set the rules, this will set the baseline to start a green production process, to start a green project from day one. And I think that will create the whole ecosystem that will help to make the sustainability a lifestyle, that will make sustainability as a real practice in the industry and in the manufacturing processes.
Yeah, thank you, Doctor, for this very important points that you have raised, which is really needed to enhance the quality of the reports that are out. Because as we said, we see many reports, but the quality of the reports, which comes here, the knowledge in sustainability, why we're doing it, how it's reflecting on your business actions. And I will highlight the part with Ms. Jana, which is related to the fact that we said that only 1% of the reports outline a quantitative measures of the impact. And as you, within Expo 2020 Dubai, you were funding the growth of innovative impact enterprises whose solutions were designed to benefit the environment and the society and the economy. So when you, were you taking the ESG into consideration while monitoring and measuring the impact of these businesses?
So we had a very interesting situation in hands at Expo, because we were supporting impact social innovation, so funding social enterprises around the world who were addressing SDGs, whether environmental aspects, social aspects, governance aspects. So we were funding projects that would provide clean water technologies, that would decrease CO2, that would provide jobs to women, that would provide access to healthcare, access to financial services. But at the same time, knowing that impact can be also negative, we had to make sure that while we are supporting these innovations meant to do positive impact, we really had to look into the fact that is that positive impact bigger than the negative impact, right? So for example, when we funded a company in Ukraine that was producing straws and cutlery from recycled materials, we had to really dig deep into their business operations to check whether on the other side they are not wasting too much water and too much energy. Otherwise, the positive impact wouldn't be there. So we also started looking at governance, at frameworks, how we can do it. We looked at the UN SDGs KPIs, we looked at IRIS, we looked at impact management project framework, which is differentiating the levels between are you just following the rules and regulations, or are you having positive impact of stakeholders, or are you providing actual solutions? So in the end, as sometimes it's common in the practice, we came with a blended way of measuring this. So we really had to study every project in detail to check that while they are doing positive impact, they're also not creating negative externalities somewhere on the other side. So when we did the measuring, we did include the KPIs in the measuring framework to help us monitor that. Because if we didn't do that, the purpose of our work, would lose the meaning, but also, it wouldn't have potential very negative reputational risk.
Yeah, thank you, Jana, for pointing this very important aspect of including quantitative and analyzing the impact of our initiatives and activities and including them in the report. So the ESG reporting or the sustainability reporting that we mostly see, not all of them, of course, they lack this quantitative or the impact, or what we say in another word, the outcomes. So the outcomes is just, we need to understand what is the positive. And I like what you say, the negative impact that you're saying, and being transparent about this and saying that, yes, we have identified that we have this negative impact, and these are the actions that we're working on them to overcome these negative impacts. And this is what we really need to see in the reports. And this drives me to the second point of our conversation, which is related to the benefits that companies get by being transparent. Maybe companies, sometimes they are more conservative about talking about numbers or the negative impact, as you said, Jana, or maybe about being very transparent about all the actions that they have been doing. However, we are missing the understand of the business case behind sustainability reports and what are the benefits that reflects not only on the company itself, but it reflects on the whole stakeholders. Like it enhances the relations with the employees, it enhances trust with the customers. So Aruna, my question to you is, who are the main stakeholders that are engaged in this process, and who are the stakeholders that will benefit, let's say, from proper sustainability reporting?
I think that's a very valid discussion point, Kulud, because often we get asked, and because sustainability, ESG, I would say, is a fairly young industry, fairly young topic. Often it gets confused with CSR. And the biggest differentiator, I would say, is sustainability is a stakeholder-driven approach. And I think that's where stakeholders play a very important role. Is it's not a company doing what they like to do or what's convenient for them to do. It's about doing what's relevant. And it's about doing what your stakeholders feel is relevant and material to your business. So it's always good to start with identifying who are your stakeholders. And a lot of times, we look at the inner circle, people who are directly involved in the business, but honestly, community sometimes is a huge stakeholder in the business, but we don't really go that broad. But I would suggest that when companies are starting their ESG journey or doing a stock take of their ESG journey, it's always important to look at stakeholders from a wide net perspective, as in cast the net as wide as you can to see who could be your potential stakeholders, not just today, but also from a longer term perspective. Because let's say you have millennials are your stakeholder group. You need to start speaking to the kids today who will become, your consumers maybe 5 years down the line. It's not that you start engaging them once they get to that level. So I would say key stakeholders groups to be considered would obviously be your investors, the government authorities that are relevant to the company's operations, employees. A lot of times suppliers are missed out. So suppliers are a very key stakeholder group because they can enable you in, let's say, your net zero journey or in your transition. Customers, community, and other social groups who could contribute or could get impacted by your business. So whenever a company is doing their stakeholder mapping, which is an exercise in itself, it's a building block to the ESG sustainability strategy, is cast the net as wide as you can, spend enough time in doing the stakeholder mapping, and not just as a compliance exercise.
True. Thank you very much, Aruna, for this. I agree definitely with all what you have mentioned. Like it's a listing or mapping of the stakeholders and then highlighting how we can engage with them and setting, and this is very important in reporting, where you set the journey and then everyone can be engaged with you, each one according to their specialty and each one according to their impact on the society and on the environment. Dr. Wesam, this also, I want to discuss this aspect from you from a different dimension. You have mentioned before that you are with enforcing or adding sustainability as an education and from the government. So from the sustainability reporting, are you with or against enforcing that reporting by the government, especially for the listed companies, or you prefer to have it as an incentive perspective or voluntarily perspective?
Yes, I am, supporting any initiative, any activity, any regulation which will make sustainability as a real practice. And I think reporting is one of the evidence that they are doing it. But prior to that, we have also, to focus on some like big issues concerning sustainability, not only on the business sector, which is contributing, and that is vary from one scenario to another, talking about the global scale, but also talking about the big contributors in terms of emissions, in terms of pollution. And that includes the industry and also at the national level, because it's not only industries, talking about the energy production, even at the national, which is the mission and the assignment of the government to do that, talking about the transport system. So there are, because sometimes if you, like in some countries, the businesses are, we are talking about the very small businesses with the very minor contribution in terms of emissions, like just to focus on that reporting, but what is the contribution of that? I mean, in some scenarios, yeah, if you're talking about the big contributors, the global leaders of businesses in terms of countries, in terms of businesses, yes, that will have a big impact. But we have also to focus on the holistic approach, the holistic scenario of all the contributors. And as again, I want to stress here that it's not, we don't have to jump to reporting. We have to start from the roots. We have to start from the roots by assessing all the environmental and social aspects of any project, all the negative impacts, and we have to put a plan as a mitigation. And that will be the first step of sustainability, because that will reflect on the reporting if we start with that. But if we have a traditional business, and then we just want to report the activities, how much we save water, how much we save waste, I think that will be kind of a cosmetic task, which will not reflect the real scenario, because I've seen a lot of cases from my international experience, even in quite developed countries, let me put this statement, but they still have a lot of river pollution, right? And the arguments sometimes, they have a lot of air pollution. And this is, again, whether we're talking about the national level or from the industry. And sometimes it's not because of regulation, it's about governance system. It's about the enforcement of these regulations and policies. So I think we have to have a reform for the whole system, starting from the way we conduct and we plan projects, we implement projects, to the next stage, which is about the monitoring of all the potential sources of pollution. So the whole system, and then that will reflect again, if we start from the beginning, considering sustainability, considering the environment, then that will definitely reflect on the reporting and will have a real impact. Because, you know, talking in numbers about the global scenario, it is terrific. We have a lot of, you know, threatening numbers, talking like, just I will give a single example here of air pollution. When we talk about 7 million people are dying every year because of air pollution, that's like you are wiping a whole nation every year from the global map. And that is, you know, it's not about being an ethical business. It's to be a human, to save the humanity, because it's not about only business. It's about people who are dying, millions of people who are dying every year. And I think, talking about pollution, all the reports mentions that we are losing 9 million people every year. So that is the basics. We have to go back to basics of implementing development, of doing business. We have to consider the environment from day one. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wesam. Like, you highlighted very important points that I totally align with, where you said that we need to avoid the business as usual process and look at the business perspective from the point that how I am impacting the environment and the society, and assess my impact and change my impact, whether it was positive and negative. And from that, the whole system and management approach will change, and that will directly reflect on the reporting. So what we need to start with from the roots, as you mentioned, the word that you used is from the roots, where the management approach should change, like avoiding the business as usual. And from this, Jana, it is all related to each other. So when we change the mindset of the organizations, whether it was from the management to senior management to all level of employees, so we need to really understand the impact. And as a practitioner in social impact, I see many organizations lack the knowledge in measuring their impact and managing their impact, and they don't know how to measure this. So can you tell us, from your experience working in Expo, how did you monitor and measure the enterprise's impact in a way that you can show the benefit and show the positive and negative things that they are doing, which after that, when you measure the impact, you can make better decisions. You are aware of what you're doing, and from that awareness, you start to make better decisions. So can you tell us, how do you do it? What are the steps of doing this?
Yes, definitely. So you're right. You're right. For many companies, it's still a very new field. You know, many times companies don't know how to approach it. They may even feel fearful because they may not have understanding what it all means, and some geographical regions are more developed when it comes to it, but we know that, for example, this region, there is still so much of development that needs to be done so that companies onboard this practice, because it's just becoming very mainstream requirement. So the sooner the companies onboard these practices, the better for their overall performance and reputation. So what we did, we first, there is this realization, the awareness that it is something that is required. And we started feeling it practically. We had a company that we wanted to fund, which was operating in Africa, recycling, collecting old mobile phones, recycling them, repurposing them, taking the precious metals out of them, right, repurposing. Positive impact, right? Repurposing, recycling, giving people jobs, helping economy to grow, especially in developing markets like Africa, positive impact. But we also, when we started digging deeper into the operations of the business, we also realized that all the scrap that is left over goes to a landfill, which is not a very positive impact, right? It's more of a negative impact. So we needed to really strike a balance and be very watchful of that. And we realized, okay, we need a framework. So the first step is the realization. The second step, I guess, it's just to do a research, you know, how can I implement, how can my company adopt this practice? Where do I start? And the company can either choose to do it via their in-house resources, depending on the capability and capacity level, or they can reach out to so many practitioners and experts, such as, you know, many of the members in this session, to receive a support with that. So that's to identify how I'm going to adopt this. And then I think, as Thomas from Maastricht Bank nicely described, is to develop a plan, you know, to break it down, to make it into a standalone project, make an implementation plan, break it down into steps, you know, what do I need to do as a step 1, as a step 2, as a step 3, what are the implementation timelines, what are the budgets required, and very importantly, the accountability. Who are the owners? Who are the owners or specific action points? So usually it is very good to introduce this activity as a corporate level activity, as a project on its own, something that company needs to adapt and embrace. And in case companies are not very familiar, maybe they don't have enough resources in-house, I think a great approach is to reach out to existing consultants and practitioners. And it's doable. It's only about the change management, right? It's embracing the change, and usually once the company makes the first step, it does happen gradually and successfully.
Thank you very much, Jana, for these practical steps where you mentioned first they need to realize, which is very important point that you said, when you are aware of your impact, actions will start to happen. So the most important thing is to be aware, to realize, and to be accountable for this impact, whether it was positive or negative impact. And based on this realization, you start to act and design your action plan, your budget, and to centralize it to be able to take the implementation. So at the end of this panel, I would like really to thank every one of you for this very valuable information. Each one of you really highlighted the aspect of reporting from different dimensions. And from my perspective, we want to really encourage proper reporting, not only launching reports with no valuable and with no additional value that would reflect your impact. We want to see more numbers. We want to see more values that really outlines what are you doing and what are your future plans and what are the beautiful things that you have been implementing. Thank you very much again for your attention, and back to you, Arjun, to complete the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Khulud. We have few questions. So before I move on to questions, Ms. Aya, I saw that you raised your hand. Please raise your hand if you have any questions.
Yes, very good morning. This is Aya Hassan. I hope that I'm audible and visible as well. So I'm leading the sustainability department here and the roadmap to net zero at ADNOC Distribution. It was very informative session indeed. Thank you for the information. And since we're working on the ESG reporting, I just wanted to kindly ask a question. What is the level of transparency that is expected to be provided in an ESG report, taking into consideration that us as companies, we choose what to report and what to highlight and what not to report or not to highlight? So basically, if you open any ESG report, as the respected members have highlighted, you would see it's full of actual perfection, let's say. Everything seems perfect. They're doing amazing. The picture seems so beautiful, and the word seems so calm, you know. So my question is, when it comes for the stakeholder engagement, where we do the materiality matrix, and we understand what the investors would like to look into, and to understand what the risks to be avoided, and what is our future plan in terms of emissions, and in terms of the governance structure, and so forth, what level of transparency is expected? Since we don't have a framework, it's a report that an organization would provide based on a certain standard, whether it's GRI, SASB, IR, etc. But it's the call of the organization of what to present or what to not to present. And you can put it in a different context. So what is expected in an ESG report would depend on the organization what to report on selection. So my question is, what level of transparency is expected in that ESG report?
Thank you, Aya, for this very important question. Are you directing this question to any one of us or in specific?
Actually, to whoever, maybe Mr. Arun, or like whoever can advise better on that. I just would like, out of curiosity, to understand and share experience, especially on the transparency part.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe I'll give it a shot, Aya, for your question, and I'll also leave the floor open to the other panelists, because we all come from different perspectives. So see, whenever I sit with my clients, the one thing I tell them when I begin the journey is your ESG process is like a health report, right? So yes, we all want to look good and be healthy, but when you go to a doctor, you don't want them to give you a good looking report. You want them to give you a real report. If you have blood pressure or if you have sugar, you want it to be reported in the right way with the right numbers so that you can take the relevant action and work on it. So to answer your question, if an organization is doing ESG reporting, not as a compliance, not to just make someone else happy, but to make the business more resilient and more sustainable, it has to be as transparent as possible, because unless you don't look at the situation the way it is, you would not be able to put in the right measures. So if I have to respond to the question, keeping aside compliance and keeping aside everything else, just sustainability advice, reporting as a business tool, I'd say it has to be as transparent as possible, surely, so that the business can benefit from the time and energy that they're investing in it. So that would be my take on that. over to you, Khulud, if anyone else wants to answer.
Yeah, thank you, Aruna, for this. Aya, if I may answer part of your question. So my question to you is, why are you doing the report? It really helps you to set the standard or the line of transparency. Like most of the sustainability report, or let's say the ideal scenarios of doing sustainability report, is that it really helps you to set, let's say, to monitor the progress of your operations. So if you limit this progress in some of your operations, especially those that you have a gap in them, you will lose the benefit of the reporting, and it will really be only a burden on you. Okay, so sustainability reports are really there not for anyone to judge you or to identify the negative points on you. No, it is there to help you monitor your achievements and to benchmark yourself with other peers in the same, let's say, field. Like in your sector, let's say, you will be able to benchmark yourself. Where are you standing? And by this, you will be able to really identify your action plan to further enhance your operations. So if you're limiting these things, you will limit the benefits that is there from sustainability reports. You will not be able to see what others are doing. You will not be able to advance your operations. And by the way, there is a practical, let's say, step that you can do in sustainability reports in case there is a number or a data that you are conservative about. We understand that the management, the senior management, there might be some conservative information, and we all agree on this, and we face it. So the thing that is required by sustainability reports is that you can mention that this aspect is confidential at this stage. However, we want to identify the justification of omitting, why you are omitting this data. Like, we have this data and we are working on it, and we plan to report on it properly next year or second year. And
Exactly.
Of course, definitely, if you have a sustainability strategy or a baseline, or not a strategy, maybe an action plan for sustainability, it will be very easy for you, because you will be reporting on your strategy or on your action. So it will be really easy for you. The flow will be different for sustainability.
I agree, exactly. I agree with what you've kindly stated, and Mr. Arun appreciated, of course. It's just the fact that when we set these KPIs need to be linked to the company's mission and vision. So the thing is that if we want to execute, we are in line with the mission and vision of the company. So sustainability itself is embedded in the DNA of the company, and it goes in line. The fact that we have the report is fine, but I believe, as the doctor who was there in the call, that we need actual actions that would produce results on reality.
Exactly.
Like, if we want to create a roadmap, then it should be actual data. Thank you so much. It was definitely informative. Thank you.
Thank you, Aya.
Maybe what can help is the keyword is prioritization. So I think you can feel free to prioritize and first focus on maybe less the key KPIs, and then over time gradually expand on them. Same, going back to what Mr. Thomas from Ashek Bank said, it seems they were very, very selective in terms of the metrics to begin with, and they were based very much on the organization's nature and business and priorities. So I think always set the right frameworks and prioritize are good keywords to follow.
Indeed. Yes, indeed. And that's where we go for external assurance on our KPIs for reasonable or limited. And that's where you know where you stand in terms of your ESG KPIs. Indeed, yes. Thank you.